What is going on, guys? It's your boy, AMS Dude, and today we're back with another video on the AMS YouTube channel. So the first thing I want to say is if you guys want to go check out our 1.34 update review video to check out all the content that was added, including this very car that we're going to be making a setup for today, be sure to check that link in the description. So without further ado, let's get into it. First disclaimer I want to throw out there is when I set up my cars, I generally run it with max power and minimum weight. The reason I do that is just to show off the maximum possible potential of the car itself. Whether or not you will be running different settings like the BOP or different power and weight settings, many of the dynamics of the car will remain sound throughout this, the weight changing process and the tire changing process. There may be a few changes you may want to make depending on the tire compound and the performance changes, and I'll go into those later on. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is, again, the power and weight. I have it all the way up, and generally speaking with GR3 cars, the weight is actually much higher, but because this car is extremely light, it actually has a serious advantage on the straights just right out of the box because it's lighter than all of the other GR3 cars with the same amount of power. So that's the first thing I'm going to note. It's right out of the box, insanely fast. So traction control is on 0. Again, that's a matter of taste and that's a matter of your driving style. I prefer running it on 0 just to not get my power cut in certain corners and just have good throttle control, and it's easy to manage. It's super soft tires, -2 brake balance, keeps the car planted, gives the car more front grip, which is nice in a mid-engine 90s car. Get as much front grip as you can to those front tires on corner entry when you're braking. Right height in the front, more of a sweet spot thing. No real science behind it, just trial and error. Sometimes I like to have it a bit higher, but on this car, 264 seems to be nice. In the rear, I have it all the way up. This tends to really help getting through the middle of the corners quickly. It just helps cornering in general, having it all the way up in the back. This will negatively impact my straight line speed. However, on tracks like the ones that you're going to run in this game with lots of corners, that 1 or 2 extra miles per hour on the straights usually isn't too helpful if you have a car that can corner much quicker speeds. Frequency, again, this car understeers quite a bit, as you expect from a car that was made in 1995. So I have the natural frequency all the way up on both ends just to get the car to turn as much as possible. Anti-roll bars are at 7 and 10. Again, this is a more of a thing that's down to feel. I don't want to have a lot of body roll in the car, especially in the rear, where it's very easily can step out in a very powerful car like the McLaren, so I have it on 10. The roll bar in the front is 7, just to help my corner entry a little bit, because again, this car understeers. You don't want to have it too low, otherwise the car will start to lurch out on you at low speeds, which is very uncomfortable. So 7 seems to be a good sweet spot for me. If you feel like the car is getting a little bit loose on corner entry at low speeds, I'd move this value up just a little bit. So dampening, compression, and rebound. At the beginning of the game, I thought this was kind of a placebo because it didn't really change the handling dynamics of many of the cars I tested. But over time, I found the best for me personally, especially with cars that tend to understeer at high speed: 51, 60, 81, 81. So all the way down, all the way up, all the way down, all the way down. Just seems to work well for me. Camber angle, 1.6 and 3.1. Now, at the end of the day, it's again up to taste, and the camber kind of matters in a way, because if the rest of your setup isn't set up well, you can really make up a lot of time with camber. But I feel like once you get the dynamics of the car and the balance well, camber honestly becomes a lot less important. But 1.6 and 3.1 is what I like to use. It just seems to work well for my particular setup. Toe angle out 0.03, basically negligible. I was just messing around with it and it felt pretty good to just run a tiny bit out in the front. And then in the rear, in 0.14, just to keep the car a little bit more stable coming out of corners. It feels a little more planted, and I like it that way. So the downforce level in the front is 400, and in the rear, this will vary depending on the track and again on your driving style. I run on 767 because the track that we practice, Dragon Trail Seaside, that I'll be running this lap on, it tends to be a track where you can get away with running a little bit less rear downforce. So down to the drivetrain, we have 5, 31, and 5. Braking sensitivity isn't actually have anything to do with your brakes. If you guys were wondering, it's actually when you lift off the gas, the way the engine brake works, and the way car pitches when you're going around a corner when you're lifting off the gas. Again, car understeers, put it on 5. Acceleration 31. You can lower this if the car seems to have a lot of on throttle oversteer for you. I have a pretty steady foot, so I have it on 31 just to maximize my acceleration speed coming through some of the higher speed corners. Initial torque just on 5. It feels good, and honestly I like to balance my car through the acceleration sensitivity. I find initial torque just causes it to understeer a lot. Transmission really did nothing fancy. All I did was move the final gear. I'm pretty sure that's all I did. And move the final gear left and right, just depending on, you know, the speed that you're traveling on the straights and depending on the track and the power level. Other than that, I feel like the gears are set up pretty well. There was nothing about the gears that I really didn't like, so I just kept them the way it was. I didn't want to fix it if it wasn't broken. Yo, what's going on, guys? We're back here once again live at Dragon Trail Seaside. Now, the biggest thing about this track is it's just a very well put together track. I feel like it tests different low speed, high speed, tests a bit of everything, so that's why we like to run here. So here we are live here. I'm going down the straight. The one thing about this car is again, it's straight line speed, especially when it's maxed out with the power. Comparatively to the other maxed out GR3 cars, this car is so fast and straight. So you don't want to try to be a hero in the corners and do too much. Just be nice and smooth and let the car do its thing on the straights. Come in, the car lurches a little bit to the left. I'm coming in to the apex, trying to get back to the gas as soon as possible. Cutting it very close on the exit of the corner there. Here you have to lift a little bit, which most GR3 cars you don't have to, but it's because you're carrying so much speed through there because of the speed of this car. Again, patient on the throttle, but back onto it. Here we go, over under the bridge. A 30.3, that is the fastest first sector time. I just want to make sure I don't mess up here. Little dab of the brake through the S's. We want to be very patient on the throttle because you want to be full throttle coming out of this last bend just to get the run down the straight. And comfortably we will do that. And even though we didn't have the fastest exit speed compared to other GR3 cars, we are going to absolutely destroy all of the other cars, including the Ford GT, down the straights with this car. And that's where it tends to gain most of its time. Coming through here, that's a difficult corner to get right, but this car is relatively stable through there. A little bit of dab through there. Oh shit, and yep, that was very close. So, you know, you got to be really careful through there because the car tends to understeer at high speed, as I mentioned. But again, the straight line speed makes up for a lot of the cornering woes. And I'll tell you what, this feels pretty fast. Just gotta come out here. Yeah, so we're looking good. If we can get a 29, that is a very competitive time in this class with all these cars. 29.6, I am very, very happy with that. I was honestly expecting, just based on the cornering speed, that we were gonna get, you know, like a 30 or something. But a 29 is extremely fast. And it's actually really fun to drive too. It's one of those cars where, you know, it might understeer a bit because it's old, but it's very, very fun to drive and very fun to try to optimize. And one of the main things is the easiest place to go fast is on the straights. So at the end of the day, if you're going fast on the straights, you're going to be making up a lot of time. Whereas corners, you know, there's no guarantees. You might mess up a corner, right? So this car can be very consistently in the 129s. There's definitely more time on the table. But again, that's just a preview lap to put on the leaderboard, as you can see right here on the Seaside leaderboard. Obviously not as fast as 787B, but still very fast nonetheless, especially for the GR3 category, having experience driving all of the cars on this track. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It was really fun making it. I love setting up cars. It's one of my main strengths on Gran Turismo Sport. And if you guys want to see more of them, just request a car, and I'm sure me or Redline or whoever else would like to make a setup can make a good one for any car that you really like to see on the channel. Beyond that, guys, it's been your boy AMS Dude, and I'm out.